Hello everybody, Anna Sabramwitz here. Hope you're having a fabulous day. Let's talk about creating compelling characters for your interactive stories and for your scenarios. How do you do that? How do you make sure they don't fall flat? How do you actually make people care about the outcome? That's what we're going to talk about today. So if that sounds interesting, enjoyable, stick around. I'm just going to open up my feeds to make sure that I can see all of your fabulous comments. Now, if you are visiting from somewhere fun, which is everywhere, make sure you post it in the comments, say hi. I'd love to see you. Now, first off, a little bit of a story. It's funny because I was just reading, I'm reading Steve Jobs' biography, and it's kind of cool because it's really well written, but also one of the things that it does is it really shows you what it takes to craft something meaningful and innovative, right? And one of the things that apparently kind of was a detriment to Steve in the very beginning when he first launched the Apple II was that it was an instant success. And so he thought that that's how things, that's how disruptive, innovative products were created. So he had unrealistic expectations about deadlines. He had unrealistic expectations about how things were going to be made, right? And it's funny, and I am in no way comparing myself to Steve Jobs here, but back about 10 years ago, around 10 years ago now, when I launched my interactive story, my first one, called Broken Coworker, one of the things that happened is it was really good right off the bat. So I got lucky, right? And what happened is I didn't really see that. I actually did the opposite of what Steve did. I didn't have that uber confidence. I didn't realize why it was lucky. I thought it was kind of a fluke, really. I really did. Because it was engaging, because there was, storytelling, because there was video, and there was graphic novel. I thought it was maybe the novelty of it. But then 10 years later, people are still emailing me about how they're really enjoying the experience. That's a decade later. Technologies have, as far as technology years, that's like 30 years, right? If not more. And so I'm thinking, what has happened that has allowed for that to actually happen? And one of the things that I'm working on and have been working on for the past decade is how can I find a system that allows me to create things that are engaging, that people resonate with, without overwhelming myself with trends, and actually choosing those technologies that are helpful, choosing them in a meaningful way instead of a reactive way, right? And so for the longest time after I launched Broken Coworker, I actually listened to the buzz. And the buzz in the industry, and it is worse than ever now, it was just as bad 10 years ago, but it's worse now, is that idea of that engagement has to do with everything to do with look and feel, that engagement has to do with technology, innovation, and that innovation has to come from software. And so what happened is I would have these, whenever I started a new project, you probably heard me talk about this before, I had a deck, and the deck was 50 different kinds of interaction templates that we had built, because I wanted people to have the maximum amount of choice, and I wanted to know how skilled I was at engagement, right? And then what happened was when I sent out those project decks for somebody to check out, and so they could choose from the a la carte menu, I thought I was completely overwhelmed. First of all, I didn't know what they were going to come back with. Most people thought they were going to be more creative than me, so they came up with their own ideas, completely, crazy stuff. And it was completely unscalable, and this is the challenge. After a while, working on those projects, I was like, yeah, this looks cool, and it feels cool, and there's this wow factor novelty, but it's not engaging. Like, if I'm starting to get bored with it and I have no stake in learning this stuff, then why would anybody else go through this, right? And that made me go back to say, okay, Broken Coworker, interactive story, still engaging, still works, and there's something there. And that's what made me pursue that, kind of go back to the basics and say, is there something here that I'm missing? And it's funny because I had to go through the pains again. Like, the reason I became a freelancer is because I wanted to do creative, progressive work. But the entire industry was telling me, listen, it's PowerPoint templates and rapid e-learning, and now we have an asset repository of interactions, and that's what's going to make you the best. That's what's going to give you the work that satisfies you. And I did that for a while, and I did that for quite a while, and I had some serious projects where I was just like, man, I can't, the dread of getting a new project. You shouldn't feel that. I'm like, am I in the wrong business? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. That's really what I was thinking. And so when I got into this, going back to the roots of interactive stories and things like that, I thought, man, there is just something beautiful about this simplicity. But what's amazing is that if you understand that framework underneath, then the tech becomes this really solid augmentation. And I got to tell you this because this is kind of interesting how this came up for me. You guys may have heard of that last Will Smith movie. I don't know if it's not the last one. It's the one called Gemini Man. Have you guys heard of that one? Anyways, let me know. And if you've seen it, let me know. But the thing with Gemini Man was, it's Ang Lee. I love that director. But and of course Will Smith. I love Will Smith, right? If you see that Pursuit of Happiness, man, that guy's awesome. So what did they do in that movie? They used like the most sophisticated CGI and frame rate configuration for cinema. It's basically was supposed to be technologically like the best, right? And I remember when I saw the trailer, that's what they were leaning on. And I thought, okay, interesting. They're leaning on the tech. Then I checked out the reviews. The movie bombed, right? The movie bombed. I haven't seen it yet. I'm probably going to see it because I'm a sci-fi nerd, right? But this is what people said. This is a movie that people saw. Some people saw in 3D. Some people saw in 4K, like epic, $178 million budget or 140, something epic, right? This is what people wrote. Boring dialogues with flat characters. At no time I felt connected to the story or any of the characters. They didn't mention anything about the CGI, right? This is another one. They said, there are honest moments of whoa, and that was cool. However, this wasn't enough of a distraction from the awful script. Now, this is crazy because, when I talk to people and I say, hey, what are some strategies that you're using to actually really engage people? And a ton of them say, the cool factor. I'm using the, what am I doing? They're like, yeah, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use like full on animation, right? And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And there's the whoa and cool factor in there. And I mean, you probably don't have $140 million to blow on tech, but these guys did, and of course paid the actors and things like that. But we're using our own little animation skills over here, and we're probably tapping into like amazing tools like Beyond or something like that. But that flopped. This movie flopped, and they used the best tech. So what's the challenge? What's the problem for us? It's about creating characters that people really care about or resonate with, right? That's what it's all about, really. If that's at the core, if you've got that, whatever you add on top of it will just enhance that experience and 10x it. But without it, it's gone. Nobody's gonna, people did stick around for 2 hours, but they had low expectations, obviously, and those were met, right? So, and I get it. Like, I remember one of the most awesome videos, animations that I saw was the one where it's called, like, you guys have probably seen, it's called RSA Animate, right? They have a whole channel. And one of the best ones that I saw was when Ken Robinson's TED Talk was basically translated into this animated video. And I was like, man, that is profound. That is so deep. I love the visual communication they used. And then I think about what it takes. Like, the reason that video was so good is because it was Sir Ken Robinson, right? And if you know anything about TED Talks, for that 18-minute span of talking, those guys prep for an entire goddamn year. A year for 18 minutes, right? To rehearse, to make sure the story's tight, the personal pieces. And we're popping out stuff like this, 45-minute dumps. We slap on some animation. We're like, see, it's going to be great. Are you kidding me? Come on, right? So if you're crafting an interactive story, or if you're crafting a scenario, you got to do more than that, or have low expectations and know it's going to be substandard. But here, what I want to do is give you some tips about what makes a character compelling, why somebody would want to help somebody solve a problem, why, if you have really good compelling characters, what they do in a good story plot, then what happens is they end up wanting to help that person and finish that story. That's one of the things that we're really going for, right? If you ever have anything, the last thing you want somebody is to be like kind of distracted and leave. I don't know if you guys play video games. I just started playing Firewatch, right? Super awesome. But one of the things that you find with really good games is not only do they get you in and you lose track of time, like you don't even know how much time has passed, which is why I have to be very, very judicious about the time that I spend playing. But also the other thing that happens is when you leave the game, you end up thinking about the game. You're like, what's going to happen next? Where am I? Like, that's what is awesome. And that's the kind of power that you can have if you use this in the right way, right? Like, you got to borrow from the masters. And it's kind of funny because I remember reading some of the other reviews for Gemini Man, and they were like, that was so predictable. I predicted the end pattern. They used a classic pattern. And I was like, see, the reason they were seeing that classic pattern of storytelling, right, which we use too, beginning, middle, end, it's nothing crazy. But the reason we're doing that, they saw it, and they were disappointed with it, is because the characters weren't compelling. Because who uses patterns to create amazing movies over and over and over again? Pixar, right? They use a formula. Formula works. But when you're in the movie, when you're embedded in the character, you don't care, you don't notice, because you're not looking at, because you're no longer, like, the only reason you'd see the plot in the stories is because you're not able to get in it. You're not lost in it. You're not in with that character. So how can we create that, right? So I'm going to tell you some of these strategies and a couple of tips to help you make more relevant dialogue and your character more compelling, okay? All right. So the one thing that you may have heard if you're interested in storytelling or not, I really learned about this recently, about stating this way, right? It's called the hero's two journeys. So what's story, period? A story has a beginning, middle, and end, right? And here I'm kind of referring to an interactive story where you give somebody the power to make decisions for a compelling character, right? This character is in a certain state right now, a certain rut. They don't know something, they're not aware of something, and you're trying to sell them on if they go out on this adventure, this journey, if they go and challenge that person, or they make a decision a little bit differently, or they go out and they, instead of going on their first reactive thing, they actually think about it and make a better decision. That's the thing that gets them to their desired outcome, right? Hi, Corinne. Hi, Luke. So great to have you guys here. So one of the things that is kind of cool when you really think about some of your most favorite characters and why they get on a journey and why they're going for this dream over here, is in the very beginning, they're not the person that can achieve all these things, right? It's what happens is, as a result of their journey and the challenges that are put in front of them, they become a different person, right? Hopefully a better person. And so what's really cool is when you realize that this person is different than this person, the goals that this person had are different. The reason why they get on the journey is different, right? So if you think about it, maybe the reason Joe wants to get on this journey of learning about sales is because he wants to be the top salesperson and he wants the biggest bonus. This Joe, that's what he wants. That's his journey. That's the external journey. That's the external goal, right? That he's going for. But what Joe realizes through these challenges, this is the hero's second journey, the internal journey, is that by building confidence in himself, he becomes a better dad. Now that is what we call the hero's two journeys. And what's really cool is the reason he got on there is because he wanted to win the bonus, But who he became at the end is a guy who is really a good father because he feels confident, he's a breadwinner, and he understands people. Right? Cool. Now that's the kind of person that I would root for. Not just the person who wants to win the gold, but also the person who's doing it for the right reasons. And that emerges over time, right? Now what's really cool is every single time you have a scenario, John or Jim, whoever, my favorite character over here, or Jane, or Joan, what happens is through the reflection that you can build in for this character throughout, you can actually guide that internal journey. You can actually influence what they're thinking, what they're feeling. Because this is not your learner's story, although it becomes their story. This is Jim's journey. This is Jane's journey. She's working towards this goal. So one of the things that's really cool is that people will jump on because this is interesting, right? But then through your journey, they also become involved in that second story, in that second narrative, which makes that person more compelling. And then, everybody wants to win the gold. Yeah, okay, that's canned, that's fine, whatever. But imagine now, who wants to be a better parent? Who wants to be a better friend? Those are the things that make somebody compelling, right? Those are the reasons why you want to finish that story, because you care about him achieving that. And that's what's really cool about this. So Shirley's saying the reasons they get on a journey is different from the beginning to the end. Not always recognized when looking at stories. Yeah, absolutely, Shirley. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like even, when you look at your most favorite characters, and like one of my favorite movies is Pride and Prejudice, right? And the reason they tell you to always like go back to the movies that you love watching the most is because those characters kind of resonate with you because you want to be like them or you are like them or whatever, right? And one of the things that if you watch Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth Bennet, she has a lot of Pride and Prejudice, and the only reason that whole movie works, and at the end she recognizes how kind of narrow-minded and judgmental she was, that was her journey. That was the best journey because she realized who she was in the end. So when that journey started, she really just wanted to be independent, right? But it was her pride and prejudice that actually worked against her. She didn't see it. So in the end, she actually saw that, and it took her a while to figure it out, right? So look at your favorite characters in movies and stories and see the outside journey, the big thing, like why does Luke want to go and get on an adventure? Because he wants to fly planes. But the inner journey is him becoming, discovering who he really is and discovering that he's responsible and he cares about more than himself. Those are things that he figures out that makes you want to become a part of his journey. Luke's saying, my favorite Pixar film is Up. Absolutely. And this is one of the things, like if somebody, this classic pattern, you see a Pixar movie, Up is so awesome. One of the things that happens in Pixar understands explicitly how important it is for you to create a character that people care about. Now they will spend almost to a dot, I kid you not, just do this, first 11 minutes of every single movie setting up that character so that we care about them, we empathize with them, we recognize some traits that are virtuous in them, right? That they want, the struggle. This is huge. So what they do is they set up in the beginning the mundane world that this person's stuck in. 11 minutes. Now this is what's cool, right? The difference between these two states needs to be big. And one of the things that, my partner Ryan's, he's always saying, what's easier to do actually is to, when your character has done that story, imagine what is the awesomest scenario for them here, right? They're a rock star salesperson. They're a rock star dad. They're a leader in the community. They're a leader at work. They're recognized. They get the bonus. All those things are happening here, right? So now all you got to do is paint. What's the opposite of that? How bad can it be, right? Nobody respects them. They haven't had sale in 3 months. Their daughter, she drew a picture of the family and dad wasn't on it. He was in the car driving, right? Whatever, but it's easier to actually start that way. And then the challenge is to get there, right? And the challenges may not have necessarily anything to do with this super outcome. They might have everything to do with becoming a better salesperson. But through becoming a better salesperson, this person becomes a better person as well. Self-aware, recognizing things that they didn't recognize before, right? So, okay, so those are my tips. Always make sure you figure out where your character wants to go. And it has to be something compelling. It can't be, Jim doesn't know the procedures. Jim knows the procedures. What? Who cares, right? Who cares? That's an hour's worth of nothing. That's boring. Well, start with this. Where do you want to take him? And amp it up. Amp it up. You're competing with Pixar here. You got to amp this up, right? And they amp it up. They make it terrible. So do the same. Do the same. Like I said, the formula is there. Now, what's really cool with interactive stories, this is the best part. When I set up Broken Coworker, this beginning, I didn't have to spend 11 minutes to be like, Sam is suffering. 9 sentences. 9 awesome sentences. So you can be very, very crafty with this. You don't have to spend the budget, the time, you do have to spend the time and the effort, but it'll pay off because in 9 sentences, I set up sympathy for the character so that people would want to go through the journey, right? Cool. Isn't that cool? Now, as far as, people talk about the dialogue feels flat. I don't know, people say it sounds canned. Nobody talks like that, blah, 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 right? How do you do this? You have to talk to practitioners and record them. So you interview people who are living in that world and say, hey, tell me about this. Use their language, capture their language, and use that in your scenarios. Also, read your dialogue out loud. We write differently than we speak. We really do. People are, I see this all the time, people are so formal. They're like, I will do this. No, nobody talks like that. I'll do that. Yeah, that's cool. Use those adjectives, use contractions, use exclamation points. People talk like that. People contract words. They're a little lazy. When you're writing dialogue, when you're writing script, you want to use language that sounds natural. Now, this is the thing. Some people will talk about, our legal department doesn't allow us to do that. It's a scenario. It's not, I'm not modifying any of the, procedures, any of the protocols. I'm simulating 2 people having a conversation. That's it. And if this stuff comes from the practitioners who are the top practitioners in the field, then that should speak volumes as well about me incorporating something that's that awesome, right? It's coming from the field, which also means that when somebody reads that, they'll see a part, if it sounds like something that their peers would say, it creates a connection. It's not now coming from the top down. Here's the 10 commandments. It's actually, they're like, they actually talk to us and this is how we talk and this could be me. You really want that, right? So it is about reading. It is about talking to people who are in the field, incorporating their struggles, incorporating their journey. And once again, and if you want to learn more about interactive storytelling and really how do you come up with these stories? Go to elearningsecrets.com, and there I go through a 2-hour intensive to walk you through the process, to show you which questions to ask and who's the right person to talk to, right? I get into all of that. So if you're enjoying this and you want to dig in deeper and use this strategy, elearningsecrets.com. And if somebody could put that into the comments for me, that would be wonderful. So where was I? Oh, yes. Okay. So one of the things that you're going to be doing with your interactive story is really just making sure that it exemplifies, right, the journey of somebody who you want to persuade. So your target learner, right, are people who are here still right now. But the person who's here, right, who's made that journey, that's your practitioner. So they're going to be able to tell you all this stuff. They're going to be able to tell you their challenges and the things that are going to get in the way. That's what you want. So you're talking to practitioners here. And when I say practitioners, I mean somebody who's been through this struggle in the past 6 months to a year, because they can still remember it, right? And this is your target learner. What do they need to do to be able to overcome this, right? And get to the awesomeness that is here, whatever that is. So, hey, thank you, Corinne. That's awesome. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. If you enjoyed it or if it spurred a bunch of questions, I'd love to hear them. So what do you guys think of this this approach? What do you guys think? Is this something that you're like, oh man, I think I can use this? Or do you have struggles? I'd love to tell me in the comments, share this. Let me know what you're thinking. And because the more you share about your doubts and what's holding you back, then the more I can try and come up with examples or explain to you what I'm doing and what my students are doing so that you can use it for yourself. All right. So let me know where this, if you like this approach, how you would use it, maybe some of the characters you would come up with. Where do you struggle? Is it setting up this dream? Is it the dialogue? What's coming up for you that you're like, oh man, yeah, I got it all, but this part is kind of fuzzy for me, right? So let me know. I love the fact that you showed up. I know you could be watching kitty videos, but you decided to show up here and listen and learn and ask questions. I absolutely love that. Oh, and Chandra said, definitely I will use this strategy in classroom training too. Heck yeah. See, Chandra, it's so cool because one of our students actually, she's running live webinars, and it was like they were supposed to go online and live in like some ridiculous amount of time. Like we're talking about 2 weeks or something like that, right? Bringing the whole program online. Crazy. But what she did is she actually said, okay, so I don't have the chance to build out this whole thing and a full interactive story. But what she did is she created these small stories to place context around the training they were going to do before the live webinar. Because one of the things that's really cool, I'm so glad you brought this up actually, is that the interactive story is a personal experience, right? Like you're practicing something in a safe place. But one of the things that also happens is it gives you an opportunity for the entire, all the people that are going to show up there to have a common experience that they have an opinion about, which is a really great starting point because you can't always guarantee that in live sessions, right? Everybody's got their own thing. So all of a sudden, everybody's got this common experience. And that actually, I think, brings the group together. And you can really leverage that. So maybe have them work through the interactive scenario by themselves first, or an interactive story, and then engage with the group and say, okay, what did you do? Why did you do it? And then do a really good group deconstruction and reflection on that. So I would, man, that's going to be fun. I'm so excited. Melissa's saying this aligns well with design thinking and using personas. Absolutely. What it does is and you just do, like you can just do one persona, right? It helps you to have more empathy for the person you're designing these things for. They're no longer a mass of blob people. It's like, this is my person I'm trying to impact. How can I do that, right? And you're always, checking them out. They're like, am I doing the right thing for this person? This is who I'm setting this up for. And by building it for one person, by just making sure you engage that one person, right? That's what makes the story compelling. You're not trying to reach everybody. You're trying to reach that one person in the best way. And that usually happens to spread to others, which is kind of magic, I think. All right. Okay. So Corinne says, I love it and I've started using it in my personal projects. Really compelling. Woo! Awesome. And Michelle says, I love the idea of this. Super creative and interesting, and integrated with CCAF is powerful. Absolutely. I'm thinking, hope I'm getting this right. This is a Michael Allen CCAF kind of strategy. And as far as even development goes, it's all iterative, right? And that's what we got to get kind of comfortable with, is creativity also comes through iteration. Like I said, that Steve Jobs thing, it's not the first try. It's, you get lucky, right? Like creating an iPhone, that's iteration, baby. That's iteration. So that's what this is as well. So what I wanted to really just end this with is you have access to a lot of technologies, and in this industry we are bombarded with tech, and a lot of money is being made off the technology aspect. And so that ramps up the message to leverage tech as much as possible. And I'm just wanting us to maybe step back a little, realize that some of the best things that we enjoy in life are augmented by tech. But, that powerful Ken Robinson TED Talk took a year for him, if not longer, to develop for an 18-minute, power talk. So how can we step back a little bit and say that our strategy and the characters are compelling, the stories are compelling before we add on the secret sauce of animation or illustration or anything else, right? If the framework's there, it'll work even on sticky notes. Although you shouldn't use sticky notes because you have all this amazing software out there. All right. You guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And you guys are awesome for sticking around. And if you like this video, make sure you like it or share it with somebody who you think would benefit from this kind of mindset and thinking. And that also lets me know that you're enjoying these and I'll do more. All right, so I'll talk to you soon, probably tomorrow. Take care, friends. Bye.